topic. We have a new topic here. A little bit professional topic, a little bit specialized topic. Let me mention broad themes from this chapter first. From last chapter about global trade, what we have to learn from trade chapter and this currency chapter is that the big question from this chapter is that you have to have a sense that it's not easy to produce cooperation on currency issues. Also from trade chapter, we learned that there are many conflicts. There are some potentials, room for cooperation, but still many countries are having problems with each other over trade issues, because that's why the current round of trade negotiation is being stalled. There's no progress. So that bilateral, regional free trade negotiations are just stopgap measures, because we have this, multilateral trade negotiation is being stalled, right? Which means that we have many problems on trade issues. Again, currency issues, we have many problems also, even more difficult. Currency cooperation is more difficult. I think that's the broad theme here you have to get. Then what makes currency cooperation difficult? I think that's another question. You read this chapter, then you have to ask what makes currency cooperation so difficult, right? That's one question. And we have just passed historic global financial crisis. It's been just 2 or 3 years since we have just passed global financial crisis. Why these global financial crises are repeated, right? Why repeated financial crises? Is there any way we could get around this crisis, financial crisis? What are the root causes of this financial crisis? Is global financial governance possible? Is global financial governance possible? What's the best type of governance mechanism regarding currency or finance? I think if you read this chapter, clearly there are several cues that you could get from this chapter that what makes currency cooperation difficult, right? Let me first point out some of these problems facing global financial cooperation first, then get to each subsection of this entire chapter. Currency conflicts take the form of developing countries, mostly developing countries suffering financial collapse. That's one form of financial crisis. Developing countries, poor countries. Because poor countries have shortage of money. Okay, shortage of money and weak financial system. Okay, weak financial system. So developing countries, one form of currency crisis is poor, underdeveloped countries suffering financial collapse. Second type of currency conflict is that by nature, it's difficult to coordinate currency values between countries by nature. unless you have a world currency, okay, unless you have a world currency, by nature, it's difficult to coordinate values of different currencies. That's how currency conflicts occur. Okay, that's how currency conflicts occur. Like for instance, different economies have different types of economies. Some economies are growing well. Some economies are having problems. And these different economies have different targets, different financial policy, different monetary policy, different fiscal policy. Different fiscal monetary policy require different currency value. Right? And different economies have different manufacturing sector. Some economies rely more on financial sector, others rely more on manufacturing sector. Depending on which sector you have, as a specialty, you have different currency values. Okay? So all different economies have different specialties, different targets, different goals. Okay? So when these two economies of different nature come into contact, okay, over trade, you have currency problems, currency conflicts. The best example, China versus the United States. The most biggest currency conflict today facing the world, the US versus China, dollar versus yuan. The problem there is just classical problem, like the United States asking China to appreciate the value of the Chinese currency. It's a typical case where a country that have more financial based, okay, and weak manufacturing base suffers trade deficit, asking a country, okay, have a more manufacturing base, enjoying trade surplus, okay, more savings rate. So this country asking, the trade surplus country to raise currency values. That's a typical case where currency conflicts occur. Right? So how do we resolve this problem? Right? How do we resolve this problem? We can't solve this by market mechanism. So we have to resort to political solutions. So this is second type of currency problem, financial crisis. Third type, which is a more recent type of currency crisis, is rich countries suffering financial crisis. That's more recent phenomenon. Like the United States. Global financial crisis 2009 originated not in Nigeria, right? Not in Mozambique, one of these problem countries, but originated in the richest country in the world, the United States. Right? And it spread out to other richest countries, European countries. So financial crisis today is not limited to financially weak developing countries. Okay? This is the third type of financial crisis. And finally, this chapter begins with this economic crisis, the current economic crisis, the latest economic crisis, financial crisis. And the reason is found in this global financial integration, right? Global financial market is being integrated. In other words, borders become meaningless, right? The barriers to financial transactions are crumbling down, right? That's the trend. Okay, and we have more liquidity. Liquidity meaning more money circulating. Okay, and countries have less power. Governments have less power over money transactions, financial flows. Governments, they don't have control. They have some control, but less control vis-a-vis the past, right? So this is financial integration, global financial integration. More transaction, more financial flow, less government power, okay? More investment power, okay? Things like that. It's a good thing, right? It's a progress, but it comes with a lot of risks. That's what it means. It comes with a lot of risks, financial risks, and potential crisis. Okay? So the more financial flows we have, the more prudent financial regulations we should have, which is lacking in today's global financial governance. Okay? And the last thing I wanted to add, in addition to 3 types of currency crisis, the last thing I want to add is that in this age of global financial integration, just small thing in one country can have a ripple effect on the entire global financial system. That's exactly what's happening today because of global financial integration. So anything matters. Okay, anything matters. Maybe financial policy, interest rate policy in Mozambique might not have, that much impact, but at least some bad policy made in Istanbul might have decisive impact on the global financial market. Or some bad policy or some bad government decisions regarding real estate in Seoul might have a decisive effect on the entire global financial crisis, global financial system. Not to mention the decision made by America, right? So this is the era, this is the age we are living in, global financial integration. That's exactly what this page is talking about. Financial integration has advantages, but carries risks. Now, currency system. So this textbook, I think, is written in a way that slowly introduces basic concepts, right? So it's a good way of introduction to financial system. We had a world currency, right? Before the 19th century, we had a world currency. And at that time, that world currency was not one particular currency, but it was metals, either gold or silver, right? Either gold or the silver. So the European state system, European financial system, which was the center of global finance at the time, was based on gold and silver as a global currency. What this means is that because of this gold-based financial system, global finance at that time was more stable than it is now. Okay? What is this system called? Gold standard. Okay? Having gold and silver as backup value, that system is called gold standard. Gold standard, which provides some stability. Okay? It provides some stability to the financial system. Now, instability was built into the global financial system when we began to lose this gold standard system. Okay, so after that, we began to lose world currency. Okay, in the contemporary era, we do not have a world currency. Okay, we do not have a world currency. So the question, then without a world currency, how do we maintain the global financial system? That's the question. How do we maintain? What kind of systems? What kind of currency systems? If not gold standard, if not a world currency. Okay, gold as a world currency. If not gold as a world currency, then what system do we have? Right? How do we maintain stability? Okay. Several types of, because if you trade, right? If you trade, currency, according to this chapter, currency is a quintessential part of national sovereignty, right? Currency power is power that any government can exercise as best example of national sovereignty, right? No government gives up on that power, currency power, okay? Now then, different countries have different individual currencies. If you trade, you have different currencies, right? How do we exchange? According to what system? That's the problem, right? We have 3 different systems. Fixed exchange rate system. Okay, we have 3 systems. Fixed exchange rate system. So like I said, currency power is a hallmark of state sovereignty, right? So every state prints its own money, right? So the international economy today is based on national currencies. I'm repeating, not a world currency. So we are not living in the gold standard age. We are living in national currency system. Okay? We are not living in a world currency system. We are living in national currency system, where each different government wields its own currency power. Okay? They don't allow world currency. So that in and of itself raises question about how do we attain currency cooperation, right? So this is the question. So I covered this. Right, again, repeating. International monetary system today is divorced from any tangible medium such as gold, right? It's a national currency system. Today is national currency system, okay? Not world currency system, right? Or not gold standard system, right? So, based on this, we have 3 systems, 3 currency systems. Fixed exchange rate, fixed exchange rate system, and floating exchange rate, second, and third, managed flow system. Let's get to one by one. Fixed exchange rate system. Let me give you a definition. Fixed exchange rate. Fixed system is a system where governments decide. Okay? Governments decide and establish official rates of exchange for their currencies. Okay? Governments decide. Meaning not by the market. Okay? Not by the market. The other system, floating system. Floating system, currency markets decide. Currency markets decide rates. There is a hybrid system. Hybrid system. Managed float. Managed float is hybrid, in between. It's in between. Basically, currencies are let go of government control. Okay? Basically, it's floating system, but governments intervene sometimes. That's hybrid, managed float. The current system, what's the current international monetary system? Managed float. Managed float. But we are entering floating from managed to floating. Okay? The more currencies float, the more instability. Because markets control. It's a good thing, but, right? Why currencies rise or fall? You need to read this section quite carefully. Why currencies rise or fall? I think this title raises a lot of interesting questions. And it gives a very short, concise answers to this, right? You know, why dollars go up and why dollars go down, why the value of currency go up and go down, right? The answer to that, right? It gives very simple answer to that. Two answers. Regarding why currencies go up and down, two short answers. Number one, according to him, I think which is a good answer. In the short term, currencies rise and fall in the short term because of speculation. That's the answer. Because of speculation. Maybe right. Speculation, meaning those investors, those financial actors, okay? Financial actors maneuver, money across borders, right? And that activity, just speculation, expecting short returns, right? Putting money in and out of the stock market, that makes currencies go up and down. Short term, which is a good answer, right? So in the short term, exchange rate depends on speculation about the future value of currencies, right? Future value of currencies. Short-term speculation, which evades government controls, right? Government is losing control on this more and more because so much money is going around, right? So much money is going around. And this freedom was taken as a good thing, right? For global economic growth. But when taken to extremes, this is a very dangerous thing. So some argue that we need to take back some government control on this, right? These financial actors are very dangerous when they are free to move. So this is short-term answer: speculation, financial freedom, liquidity. This makes currencies fluctuate. Particularly, which currencies fluctuate more? Does dollar fluctuate more, or does Korean currency fluctuate more? Or like African currency fluctuate more, or Mexican currency fluctuate more? The country that fluctuate more is currencies of weak, developing, poor countries, right? And currencies of rich countries are relatively stable, okay? In theory, they are relatively stable. So currency fluctuations are seen in many developing countries today, not in advanced countries. Currency fluctuations. Because the markets, stock markets, financial markets of these developing countries grow faster, right? Grow faster. And newly open to foreign investors. Grow faster, newly open, but financial system is still fully established, right? Which means that there are many windows of opportunities for speculators, right? So speculation occurs in developing markets, right? So currency fluctuation in developing countries. Second answer, why currencies go up and down? Second answer is more long-term answer. 신성우, what's the long-term answer to currency fluctuations? What makes currencies go up and down in the long-term perspective? Right, supply and demand. Basically, what determines rise and fall of certain currencies is simply supply and demand mechanism. Whether or not that currency is needed, that determines values, fluctuations. Not fluctuations, but right, go up and down. That determines go up and down in the longer term perspective. Then, 신성호. Okay, you are fine. Next one. 신윤경. Okay. From longer term perspective, basically supply and demand determines rise and fall of currency values. Okay. Then my question is that then what determines supply and demand for a certain currency in the longer term perspective? Like for instance, Korean currencies rise today and several days later go down, right? And in this short-term period, right, the only explanation is speculative behaviors, right? Those who come into the Korean stock market, go out of stock market, we need to see those moves, right? But like if you compare Korean currency today and Korean currency 2 years ago, how do you decide, right? How do you determine, what is behind this, right? Rise and fall. That's the question. How would you answer that question? So the answer is maybe supply and demand. Korean currency at that time was needed more, but currently is not needed anymore. That's supply and demand, right? But then you need to ask another question. Then what determines that supply and demand for the Korean currency? Economic efficiency. Let me quote from this textbook. Economic efficiency and trust. Trust in the currency or in the economy. Right? So what this means is that long-term currency value is determined by people's trust in that economy. That's long-term determinant of currencies. if you trust the Korean government, right? If you trust the Korean government, that trust must bring up the value of the Korean currency, right? So if you have that thought, then you want to have the Korean currency that brings up demand. Okay? If you want more, right? Demand supply curve, price goes up, right? But if the Korean government has a bad policy, Korean government has economic problems, then we lose trust of foreigners. Okay? Then what happens? Then Korean government prints money. Okay? Prints money. Then the more the Korean government prints money, the value of the Korean currency goes down. That's the mechanism here, right? So the more trust you have, and the more efficient your economy is, right? The less you print the money. Okay? You don't need to print the money because you trade, right? You earn more money. You don't have to print money domestically because you can earn money from other countries. So now you have a better understanding of why currencies go up and down? Currency conflicts. Let me ask another student. 신정아. Having said all this, then I took the example of U.S.-Chinese currency conflicts. But when currency conflicts occur, usually what would happen between the two opponents? Why countries have conflicts over currencies usually? They want to expand their economic interests. Okay. Right. But as I read this textbook, countries have conflicts over currencies because they want to devalue their currencies. In other words, currency conflicts in most cases are over devaluation. Okay? Over devaluation. US-Chinese case, same. Okay? Same. US-China, they have mutual problems because China is devaluing the currency artificially. China doesn't let the market decide on the currency values. So America is suspecting the Chinese government intervening in the currency market and artificially devaluing the Chinese currency so that China can export more. So this is an export game. Who exports more? That is currency game. So that's why currency conflicts in most cases are over devaluation. What is the definition of devaluation? Page 328, last paragraph, second from top. Unilateral move to reduce the value of one's own currency. That's devaluation. And this constitutes the most outstanding currency conflicts today. I mean, in history, the classic example of currency conflicts. By changing a fixed or official exchange rate, this is devaluation. And this is currency conflicts. You know, the currency fluctuations, you know, from longer term perspective, it's a working of general economic efficiency, right? General economic efficiency. So it's not fair 100%. It's not fair 100% pointing to China, right? Arguing that you are manipulating your own currency, which exactly America is making. American accusation against China that you are manipulating the currency market by devaluing, right? It's not 100% correct. At the outset, it is correct, but it's not 100% correct because, you know, currency value is a reflection of different economic structures. Different economic structures because you see, look around the world today. Look around the world today. How the economies are structured today. The economy, the global economy is structured in a way that you have relatively rich countries, okay? Relatively rich countries. Like for instance, maybe not right, I mean dividing rich and poor, but let's divide countries, a group of countries where factories are running well, okay? Manufacturing activities are still, still strong, and trade is good, so that in such countries, they earn money through trading. Okay, so that these countries enjoy trade surplus. This is one group of countries, the global economic structure. And who are these countries? China, right? China, clearly. They enjoy trade surplus, right? China, maybe Korea, Germany, used to be Japan, but Japan turned into red after Fukushima event due to energy imports, right? But used to be Japan, right? So there are a group of countries who enjoy trade surplus, right? But on the other hand, you have a group of countries that exactly the opposite, trade deficit. So we have two kinds of groups in the global economy: trade surplus countries, trade deficit countries, right? And this is a global problem. Yeah, how do we, and this was on the agenda of G20, global economic problem, this bifurcated structure, okay? And particularly, this is the American argument. This is the American argument, right? How do we resolve this bifurcated economic structure where certain countries keep enjoying, right, trade surplus? On the other hand, there are trade deficit countries. The US is the biggest trade deficit country. Then the only way, this is the G20 argument, the only way we could resolve this surplus deficit divide is currency readjustment. That's the approach of G20 or the US. Currency adjustment. That's the only way. Maybe the most convenient way, currency adjustment. If you adjust currency value a little bit, then you could earn a lot of money. It amounts to selling hundreds of thousands of cars, same thing. If you adjust currency value a little bit, that is equivalent to exporting hundreds of thousands of cars, right? So how tempting is that, right? So, but it is tempting, convenient, easy, quick, And this is how America have done for so many years, right? When America confronts these trade deficit problems, that's how America sort of survived several times. In US-China conflict, we have another momentum where the US is suffering huge trade deficit. Then America is resorting to the last minute measure, which is currency devaluation, which is a political solution. But like I said, my point is that currency value is a reflection of fundamental economic structures. That's my point, fundamental economic structures. Here is a interesting question posed. When politicians control monetary issues, okay, and real financial experts, okay, controls monetary issues, which have statistically, which system has a higher inflation? Yes, central bank should control over printing money, right? Right. So the worst thing you do about money is to have a freedom over printing, right? That's the worst thing you can do about money, right? About the banks, about the central bank, right? The state bank, central bank. That's the worst thing. So to avoid this worst thing, institutionally, you put, impartial man, right, on the helm of that bank, state bank, right? That's why central bank should be independent, right? Any central bank have some autonomy from politicians. That's the reason. Now, the U.S. Central Bank, American Central Bank, is called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve. As a central bank, right? As a central bank. This textbook explains how the central bank controls money, right? How inflation goes up, goes down, through what mechanism, right? That's the task of central bank, right? The most important tool the central bank has over inflation is you have the tool called discount rate. Discount rate. Discount rate. Discount rate, what is discount rate? It's interest rates for banks, not individuals. Okay? When individuals borrow money from commercial banks, right, that rate is called interest rates, right? But commercial banks borrow money from the central bank, that interest rate is called discount rate, right? So it's interest rates for banks, not individuals. So if you want to have a higher economic growth rate, okay, if you want to have a more active economy, right, you need to circulate more money, right? In order for more money to circulate in the economy, you set the discount rate at a lower level, right? That's the mechanism of discount rate. And the opposite is true, right? If inflation goes too high, then you set the discount rate high so that reduce the circulation monetary circulation. Just simple basics of economics, right? So politicians should not touch this. That's what it means. The politicians should be removed from this area. So central bank should have autonomy on this. Now, 신기영. Okay, my question to you. What are the international consequences of this discount rates of central banks? You know, when central banks set discount rate higher, okay? When central banks set discount rate lower, what are the implications? What are the different implications for international economy? Interest rate, meaning first, you know, discount rate first, right? High discount rate, then at commercial level, higher interest rate, right? Then when America has a higher interest rate, what happens internationally is they absorb more capital, investment, right? What was the Tesco World Bank? You know, they give out loans to reconstruct, right? Reconstruct the ailing economies. In the beginning, Western Europe, later in the developing countries. And IMF role, there are three important IMF roles. So there was a Bretton Woods meeting, 1944, so that they established World Bank, right? And IMF, there are three essential roles for IMF. Number one, they coordinate international currency exchange. Currency exchange. Okay. Second, balance of payments. Balance of payments. And national accounts. Okay, these are three tasks of IMF. And World Bank, IMF, two pillars of international financial system. International financial system. Now, the system from 45-71, the financial system 45-71 is called dollar gold system. Dollar-gold system. Dollar-gold system. It's not gold standard, but technically gold had some role, technically. So it is called gold standard, dollar gold system. It was a stable monetary system. The way it worked is that the dollar had a fixed value. Okay, the dollar had a fixed value. Okay, and that fixed value is equal to 1 to 35. Okay, $1 and 35 gold. Okay, that value is set fixed. And the US government guaranteed to buy dollars for gold, okay, at that rate. Why is this important? This is important because the US, okay, because dollar was technically being a world currency, okay, technically. But the dollar, the America made sure that always the dollar has the backup value. Okay? America doesn't print additional dollar. They always made sure that this dollar is 1-to-1 coordination with the gold amount they have. Okay, that's dollar gold system. That way, America was providing trust, okay, in the dollar. Dollar value never goes down. Okay? But this dollar gold system is abandoned in 1971 under President Nixon. The reason why at that time America abandoned this dollar gold system. Can you read the study? The reason behind it. Why America abandoned this. And the textbook says it was a good thing for the American economy. It was a good thing. The immediate outcome was that the dollar was the value dramatically went down after the abandonment of the gold standard. Because under that dollar gold system, US dollar was much too overvalued. It says that the abandonment of the gold standard was good for the US economy. Okay? Then instead, to replace gold, IMF created SDR, special drawing rights. Which is a paper gold. SDR is the closest thing to a world currency. Using SDR, you can't buy goods. You cannot buy goods. Okay, through SDR, governments can buy only currencies, different currencies. It's not for individuals. Okay. Now, the remaining pages of this chapter are devoted to, I think it's quite logical in the sense that the remaining pages are devoted to individual economies, like beginning the United States, Russia, and major Asian countries. The reason being, it shows, different financial positions of different countries. I've never seen any other textbook written like this, but this section, I think, makes a lot of sense to me when I read it again. It's worthwhile to look into the US economy. Like, for instance, in discussing the dollar value, we need to, then in looking at financial positions, this textbook shows how different countries manage their national accounts, so to speak. And depending on how they manage their own national accounts, how they develop national debt, how they get into national debt, right? So this is the criteria against which different countries are measured. So according to this measure, America is highly underperforming, right? According to this category, America is way underperforming. They don't meet up to people's expectations. National accounts, there are three things that constitute national accounts. In other words, looking at whether or not a certain country's economy is doing okay or not, you need to look into these national accounts, so to speak. And national accounts are composed of three things: current account, capital accounts, and reserves, currency reserves. These three things constitute national accounts. So if you do well on these, different accounts, then your economy is going well. So current account, what is current account? Current account is, what is current account? Plus minus of trading. That's current account, simply speaking. Right? Plus minus of trading, current account. Capital account, it's inflows, outflows of capital. That's capital accounts. And currency reserves, foreign exchange reserves, right? Foreign exchange reserves. Foreign exchange reserves. Right, if you combine all the current account, capital accounts, that's foreign exchange reserves, right? Foreign exchange reserves. Then, interesting question. Why do states go into debt? There are interesting answers to that. Why certain countries go into debt? Number one reason, trade deficit. When you have a trade deficit, that'll lead to national debt, trade deficit. Second reason, income consumption pattern. Income and consumption pattern among households and companies. Income and consumption pattern. And number three, government spending. Government spending and taxation. These three things are determinants of national debt. Look at the US economy. Look at the US economy. America has number one, trade deficit. The number is here, right? Staggering amount of trade deficit, right? Budget deficit. So US has twin deficits, trade deficit, budget deficit. Therefore, US has national debt. Right? Staggering amount of national debt. You have all the numbers here. 15 trillion at the end of 2012. 15 trillion national debt. So, just textbook definition. Why America got into national debt, right? Trade deficit, consumption pattern. How is America? How do Americans, consume? Consumer behavior of Americans. Savings rate is so low in America, right? They just spend rather than saving. Right? That explains national debt. Government spending, I'm not sure about that. Whether or not the US government is spending oriented, I'm not sure about that, but, right? Not sure about that. The governments who spend more are mostly European rather than American. Right? So I'm not sure about government spending. taxation, again, I don't know. I mean, Korea has a taxation problem. The current Korean government has a taxation problem. There's a lot of loopholes in taxing companies. Companies and individuals. Korea doesn't have a highly developed taxing system like in many developing countries. So Korean citizens have a lot of complaints against the government, the current government. So we have that problem, taxation problem. Russia. I know a little bit about Russia. Can you get into Russian discussion next time? Yes. How about Tuesday? We begin with Russia. But mainly Tuesday will be multinational cooperation, the second section. And why don't you read the initial several pages of chapter 10 for Tuesday. Chapter 10, several pages, chapter 10.